Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for coming to this open session regarding the expansion of our Emergency Vehicle Operations Center here at WCTC. We're trying very hard to meet the needs of the local economy and the needs of the businesses and industry and of our service providers, our police and fire and emergency medical service agencies, and providing them with a space that they can train on and train effectively on before they go out and are actually on the road. The track itself is well over 30 years old, and it's in desperate need of repair, but also its functionality is not meeting the needs of what the types of equipment are, if you can think 30 years back of what it was like. And the vehicles then and the vehicles now are much different. And the demand, again, in us trying to meet what the employers are asking us to do and the graduates to put out, far exceeds what the capacity of that track can do. So tonight we have a panel of individuals, and we have a video that we've put together as well to explain about the need for the track. And we have our engineers here, we have our noise abatement specialists that do noise studies in December. And in addition to that, we have a web page where the video will be out, and also all of the information that is here is on that web page and available to you, and it should be on your information that you've received at your chairs. So appreciate you coming tonight and listening, and we'll go from here. So I'm going to hand it over to Mike Shields. He's the dean of this area. So Mike.
Okay. Thank you, Kaylin.
You're welcome.
Again, I'd like to thank you all for attending our information session tonight. And by way of introduction here, I'd like to introduce the people that we have with us representing the different program areas. My name is Mike Shields. I'm the Dean of the School of Applied Technology, so I work with our truck driving program. Dr. Greg West is a Dean of the School of Protective and Human Services. Brian Doro is the Associate Dean of our Criminal Justice Law Enforcement programs. Mark Resnick is the Associate Dean of Graphics Engineering in our truck driving program. And Courtney Hull is the Associate Dean for Fire EMS. Jeff Leverance is our Director of Facility Services. And we also have representatives here from our engineering firm, Short Elliott Hendrickson, Civil Engineering, and Key Engineering Group that performed the sound study. So what is the EVOC? EVOC is our Emergency Vehicle Operation course that's located on the southwest end of our campus. It's about 1/10 of a mile in length. And just to give you a little bit of a frame of reference here on our map, we are right now in the Richard T. Anderson Education Center, and this is the main entrance onto our campus. And our EVOC, well, this thing is right over here. Here's College Avenue. Here's our current EVOC, and in a few minutes we'll be showing you plans of the proposed expansion. Currently, we have a lot of different program areas using the EVOC. There's our criminal justice law enforcement, fire and emergency medical services, truck driving programs. We have in-service training for local police and fire departments. We have motorcycle rider courses and defensive driver training. This is a highly utilized space, and there are many scheduling conflicts between the different program areas that use the space. The current state of the EVOC, as Kaylin mentioned earlier, it's about 30 years old. It lacks real-world driving scenarios. It's really just a large parking lot. And as I mentioned, all the different program areas that use it, are a lot of constraints for availability due to all those different types of training, due to in-service training increases and enrollment increases. And with this outdated training space, our instructors are limited to the types of training scenarios that they can provide on the course. Currently, some of our parking lots and roadways on our campus are used to train our police recruits in law enforcement academy, which creates concerns for both the instructors and the students in our law enforcement programs, as well as our other campus community using those different areas as those scenarios are performed. And the in-service hours have increased in many of our protective services, and those regulations have increased, which requires more training for both people that are currently in the protective services, working in the police and fire departments and ambulance drivers, as well as the requirements have increased for our students. And in 2002, in our truck driving program, we had approximately 24 students at that time. We were running that program during the day. Currently, or last year, we had over 150 graduates in our truck driving program. So that program the enrollments have really increased in there. And as far as training 30 years ago versus today, the best practices as well as driver training standards have dramatically changed, and it is time that we update and expand our training area. So why is this EVOC expansion important? As Kaylin also mentioned, we need to improve the services that we're delivering to both our students that are going out into truck driving, to the community that comes in for motorcycle driving, defensive driving, and to police and fire departments as well. We need to update those facilities to provide real-world scenario-based training, and we need to meet the employer demand locally for that economic impact, and we need to enhance public safety in our communities. Many of the local fire departments, and well, local and all fire departments, have different certifications for their operators. For their pumper trucks, for their aerial trucks, all those different type of apparatus, the drivers have different types of certifications. So those departments frequently call us to be able to use our EVOC so that they can set up the courses for the training. Because of the amount of utilization of that area, we're not able to do a lot of that. So we would be able to do more training if it was expanded. When I talked about real-life driving scenarios before, one of those really important ones is the roundabouts that we see all over the place now. For our truck drivers, our fire truck drivers, many of them, the first time they see them is on the roadway. We need to have that type of training in a controlled environment here on our campus, so the first time our students see it isn't when they're in a pressured situation driving in a community or on the roadway. Defensive driver training courses that many parents would like their children to get into, or young drivers, we're not able to offer as many of those as we would like to because of the constraints of the course. So at this time, I'd like to show a video of the highlights of how the EVOC is used. And this really shows how we're able to prepare our graduates to have the skills needed to be successful in the workforce. WCTC's Emergency Vehicle Operation course, or EVOC, is used to train our students in truck driving, fire and EMS, and criminal justice programs. It is also used for motorcycle rider courses and defensive driver training. The current EVOC was built 30 years ago and is outdated and insufficient for current training standards and state and federal requirements. As the need for our graduates from these high-demand program areas has increased, the demand for the EVOC has increased as well. Graduates of these programs live and work in the community and have an impact on our quality of life. For all of these reasons, we are proposing an expansion of WCTC's EVOC.
We have a very long-standing relationship with Waukesha County Technical College. We probably hire the lion's share of our deputies that have gone through not only their associate degree program, but also the law enforcement in-service program. And we utilize WCTC for much of our in-service training, which is a wide variety of subject matters, from investigative courses to defensive tactics to vehicle operations. They are really our most used law enforcement training vendor. Right now, the primary use for the EVOC program is through our in-service training. The state of Wisconsin mandates that we have particular recurrent training in emergency vehicle operation for every law enforcement officer that takes place every other year. And so WCTC is our primary vendor for that training, and we've had that relationship for a long time. Well, a lot of people think that a law enforcement officer just gets behind a wheel and drives and they use the same skill set that the average citizen uses, and that's not true. We obviously have to drive in a lot of different weather conditions, and we drive on a lot of different surfaces. And many times, again, we have to do so at pretty elevated speed levels. And so it's important that officers understand how these vehicles operate at a high level of speed. They need to understand how they handle on different terrains, different weather conditions, and they need to be able to make judgments and decisions about how they're going to continue high-speed operation dependent on time of day issues and other traffic issues. So having a facility that allows us to simulate the kind of driving that a law enforcement officer does on a day-to-day basis is really critical to making sure that we have the proficiency level we need to be able to drive safely in the community. Well, I think we've always had really good training at WCTC. Any improvement in that training, I think, really has to coincide with an improvement of the facility. Because as it stands right now, the WCTC EVOC course is really nothing more than a large parking lot with a skid pan in it. And while I think the instructors in the program have done a lot to make the most use of that facility, we really have learned over many decades of vehicle operations that you need to have a facility that allows different types of driving. When I look at the new plans of the EVOC facility, a couple of things are pretty apparent. Number one, it's much bigger, so it allows us to get involved in different kinds of scenarios. There are roadways in the new plan that don't exist in the existing facility, and that roadway allows us to do quite a bit of simulation in terms of how the vehicles handle on curves and how they handle at straightaways. There's also a roundabout that's in the new plan, which is something that all the drivers in the state are getting more and more accustomed to and more experienced with. And when we're dealing with a high-speed pursuit type scenario, it's really a good idea to have the ability to be able to simulate the kind of driving that we do on a day-to-day basis. And so having that roundabout, I think, is a good addition. So in general, the new facility is not only bigger, but it adds a lot of different nuances to the driving that more realistically places the training in a real-world environment. I think that it's about time that we have such a great facility that's available. So I'm excited for the opportunity to provide our deputies with the level of training that's going to really affect their ability to operate more safely. I think we are literally at the cusp of the state-of-the-art kind of a facility, given some of the enhancements that this plan offers.
City of Waukesha Fire Department values the importance of driver's training because of what you see. I mean, we have very large apparatus that are moving through in an emergent fashion, traveling through our streets at sometimes very accelerated speeds. Traffic is only getting busier in every one of our communities and in the county. So really, we value the importance, and we think that driver's training is important so that our personnel are better prepared to navigate safely and respond to our customers' emergencies when they're called to help. Number one, and the biggest challenge for the City of Waukesha Fire Department for the course is just getting the time. The track is constantly being utilized. Our organization would love to be able to not only use the track for our yearly training, but we have frequent new employee training that we're forced to either go out to parking lots and utilize less than ideal operating conditions where the track is best suited for, where we have the open space and we have the opportunity. For our training, it's important that our drivers have an opportunity to drive on closed roads so that they can make mistakes in the training environment and not when they're out driving around. We're very excited by almost tripling the size and over the multi-year project. It's going to give us more opportunity, and it's going to allow us more chance to get on a closed circuit, drive on realistic street-like conditions that they're going to see in the community, and work in environments that are better suited for their overall success, and hopefully minimize our liability when we're out driving and minimize our opportunity for damage to our own vehicles. At least 50% of our workforce has taken some level of training through the WCTC program, whether it's through the EMS or the fire service side. WCTC grads are well prepared, are ready to perform, and are the ones that we usually look to seek out when we are in hiring processes. Because A, they're familiar with the opportunities we have here in our community, they're tied back to our community, and it really makes for a great win-win situation.
In the last 2 years, we had 20 graduates come up from Waukesha Tech, so it's roughly 10 a year. The industry is really has a shortage of truck drivers because there's a lot of people retiring in the industry, and there's not many people wanting to go into the industry anymore. You need to have a safe driver, and he's got to come out with a good education of driving. And that's why school is very important. It's very important for a truck driver to go through all those experiences and hope that it stays in his mind, so when he's out on the road that he remembers what he was taught from school. A truck cannot stop on a dime, especially if you got 80,000 pounds. You know, it takes a while for that truck to stop, and these cars will pull in front of you and step on a brake, and that's what happens. The roundabouts are getting very popular in the US, and when they're getting training to go around them, because you got to be careful with a 60, 65 foot unit that you're not running up on top of a car and be able to get around that roundabout. For us, we're self-insured, and we eat the first $400,000 from an accident. So they need to be well rounded out on driving truck, and we don't want any accidents. That's the last thing we want. Well, we think Waukesha Tech's a good school. They teach them well, and with your new program coming on board, it'll be so much better.
The expanded EVOC will allow for our students to receive real-world scenario-based training. So when they start their careers, they will be well prepared. At this time, I'd be turning the microphone over to Jeff Leverance to talk about the proposed expansion and the project details.
Good evening. We're planning to do this project, as you see on the boards, if you've looked at them, in 3 phases. There are 4 phases that are on there. The first 3 are included in our facilities master plan. The 4th phase we've talked about, but we're not going to include it at this time. So phase 1, we're looking at to begin in the spring of 2017. We'll get into a little deeper timeline in a little bit. We'll be going for Plan Commission approval and WCTC board approval. Phase 2 will begin in 2019, and then phase 3 will begin in 2021. And this fits into our master plan for both budgeting and for working with other students that are in these programs.
This is working.
Pointer?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, good. So from the previous slide, we talked about phase 1. This is our current existing EVOC track right here. Phase 1 is everything that's in the light gray, the roadways that go around here. So in this roadway, you'll see we talked about a roundabout. Here's a 4-way stop. Up here we have a 3-way stop. Over here we have a railroad crossing. These are those real life scenarios that these instructors and the managers for these areas have talked about having for their students to train on. There's also roadways where the current EVOC track, they set up cones as you saw in the video, but they really don't have roadways to work around with traffic, maybe in 2 directions. Phase 1 will also include a motorcycle track. We've got scheduling concerns out there where we can't have 2 different operations performing at the same time, which causes us some scheduling concerns. So if we have this motorcycle track here, we can have motorcycles on this track right here, but we can also have defensive driving, we can have police recruits, we can have truck drivers, or we can have fire apparatus bay on the other track and on the roadways at the same time. So we can work with the students to try and get them into the better scenarios earlier. Part of this project is also going to be to create the berm along this side. This is about a 560-foot berm. It'll be about 8 to 10 feet high, and we'll plant white pines on this berm. That's both to reduce light from the headlights of the vehicles and also to help reduce noise from the track. And we'll get into a little bit of the noise issue that we did some recordings with, and Darcy will talk about that. Phase one will also include most of the earthwork that's going to be required. We'll try to get this as close to the final product as we can, and we'll build this stormwater retention system as phase one, large enough for all of the impervious track areas that we'll be building. So that takes care of phase one. That's what we're planning to build in 2017. 2019 will be the yellowish colored areas up here. 2019 will be the CDL track itself. That's where the large CDL vehicles will be training on, as well as they can get down into this track if there are no other events scheduled. So they can move from track to track and they can utilize the roadways at the same time. Phase three would be a classroom building, because we are now going to have 2 tracks out here. We've talked about building a building out here that has 2 classrooms in it. One classroom facing the CDL range, the other classroom facing the motorcycle range, with restrooms on that right now. Right now, we do not have any restrooms out on this facility other than portable toilets. So that would be our third phase. That would what we would plan to build in 2019, 2021, excuse me. With this, we did do a sound study to see what our sound usage was. And Darcy is the vice president at Key Engineering, and I'll let Darcy explain what they did and the results that they found.
Sure. Do we have a map we had up there last time?
If you click forward.
There we go.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with Key Engineering Group. We were hired by WCTC to do a sound study out here. They wanted to know what during an operating condition, what the overall effect of sound was going to be on the close to the track, so within 100 feet of the track, you can see, and also for this one. Okay, yeah. So we set up 100 feet away. We set up 630 feet away from the track. We ran the study from December the 4th to December the 23rd of last year, and we recorded 24 hours. We recorded a continuous recording. We couldn't. The instrument was set up. It was a Sound Pro instrument that was calibrated to engage at 45 decibels, and it can record all the way up to 120 decibels. It recorded between 12 hertz up to 600 millihertz, I think, was the total value. So it would certainly capture any sound that would come from the track, whether it is from police cars or whether it was from trucks, whatever was operating out there at the time. And what we discovered, after we ran it, we downloaded the data, and we looked at the data specifically for the close location. And within that, we found that 93% of the time from the whoops, what did I do, Jeff?
I did that actually.
Okay, there we go. 93% of the data was recorded at 50 decibels or less, which is consistent with a quiet suburban setting. So 93% of the time it was relatively quiet. We did find that 14% of the data was at a level that was consistent with that of a vacuum cleaner. And it's definitely a function of having some noise that was coming from the track. But what we discovered was, this was at 100 feet is where we found the 14% of the time. So we knew that there was some track noise that was coming from there. The highest noise that we had, though, the highest recorded noise was 630 feet away. And we had asked ourselves, why would that be showing up, that we had a 71 decibel reading there, which was consistent with the noise from a garbage cleaner. And that was, we believe, because of its proximity to the local fire station that was there. So we compared the data to the village ordinance for sound, and we believe that the sound is acceptable to within the village ordinance. And we did find that yes, there is some ground level noise with operation, but at a distance from the track, 93% of the noise is very consistent with 50 decibels or less, which is a very quiet suburban setting. So all in all, we felt that the noise from the EVOC track was contained, and it does fall within the village ordinance, and that was our finding.
Okay. Can we go back a couple of slides to the one more? Okay. We had talked about this berm area that's right here. There's an existing tree line right along our fence line. We're going to plan to leave all of those trees into place. We'll create this berm, and if we go ahead a few slides, a few minutes here, we'll talk about, but this berm will be 8 to 10 feet high, and we're going to plant some white pines on it, both to reduce the light and the noise. So if you want to go forward a little bit. So we're also going to talk about the no engine braking and horn blowing, which we currently do out on the EVOC track. They do not do that. We use lower wattage speakers in our sirens on police car and on our emergency vehicles. We also do only intermittent use of those sound devices out there. And we're also going to put in LED lights to light the track and the roadways. And these lights will be cutoff lights so that they have no light pollution. They go down. You can set the rear light level on them so that it doesn't go beyond probably about 10 or 20 feet beyond the actual track or the road. They have very nice cutoff levels on them. So that's our plan for the lighting of these tracks. So, Mike. So I talked about the berm. So this right here would be the level of the track. And this would be the berm that we would create at the end of that track right here. So you can see if this is a vehicle here, the lights and the noise would be somewhat controlled by that. Then we will plant trees on that. And this is one section of the new proposed track. If you go one more. The second section of this, you'll see again, EVOC track pitched toward the new water retention basin and in the berm area and with the trees that will be planted on there. Okay, Mike?
So clearly the college is very considerate about safety, and it's a very high priority for the college with the types of vehicles that are being used on the EVOC and with the student involvement on the EVOC. Instructors are on the course at all times during the time that the students are out there. The entire perimeter of the EVOC area is fenced, and the fence is always closed and locked, and a training curriculum is always followed. There are industry standards on how the different cones should be configured, and those are regulated by a variety of different areas, and we have to get those settings and setups actually approved, but that curriculum is always followed.
So next we'll talk about the project timeline. I mentioned earlier that we'd be looking for approvals in September. We're planning to take this project to our WCTC board for an initial approval. And that's required because of the size of this project. The state board has to get involved with review and approval of these projects. But before we can send it to the state, our board has to be made aware of the project, the details of it, and they have to give us the authority to send it to the state. So in September, we're planning to do that, go to the WCTC board. In September, I'll plan to submit for the Village of Pewaukee Plan Commission. So in October, we'll go to the Village of Plan Commission in Pewaukee for a first review. It'll probably require, most of these larger projects require 2 reviews at least. One is to get them conceptual review of the project. Then a month later, we'll go for final approval. With that, we also will go to the State Technical College System Board, which I talked about. That'll probably happen in November of 2017. During the same time, we'll be going for the Department of Natural Resources for a review of this project. Key Engineering is already in the process of doing an environmental assessment on this project for us. We'll come back, we'll bid this project out in probably January of 2017. We'll go back for our board final approval in March of 2017, and then we'll start construction probably in May of 2017, hoping to be done before the August start of fall classes. Okay.
Thank you, John. So, an upcoming date that we'd like to remind you all about is we have an open site visit this Saturday morning, starting at 8 a.m., going until noon. That's this Saturday the 13th, and we'll be providing tours of that training area where the new course and all of the phases are marked out and flagged out so you can see exactly what our plans are. And again, that is Saturday morning from 8 until noon, so we invite you all to attend. There'll be directional maps and things like that, and signs and arrows on campus, and people directing where that area is on campus. And if you're interested in learning more about this project or seeing any of the presentations or videos that we shared tonight, you can go to our webpage, wctc.edu/EVOC. And at this time, we'd like to open the floor to questions and comments. And in alignment with our other meeting formats at the college, we asked that people keep their comments and questions to 3 minutes to allow all those in attendance an opportunity to comment. And I'd also ask that you would state your name and your interest as a neighbor, business owner, community member, whatever the case is. So at this time, are there any questions or comments?
Good evening. My name is Pauline Jasky. I own Fairway Transit, a trucking company that provides services nationwide and a lot locally also. I do hire drivers from the school on a regular basis, and I have to say that the job they do here is absolutely astounding. And to share the importance of, my first reason for being here is prior to being involved in trucking, I was a registered nurse working at Milwaukee County Hospital for a number of years. And I had the opportunity to see the results of accidents. And so my first concern with having this facility available is the safety. Not only the training of our firefighters and the police officers, but also to stress the importance of the proper training of the truck drivers. I can't explain enough the importance in how we retrain, and I'm hoping that eventually you'll get not only training new drivers, but also retraining drivers and checking on that. I know that they do some of that on a private, I don't know if people are aware of this, but the economic impact of having a well-staffed trucking industry affects every single person in this room. Whether you know it or not, everything that you use, eat, or deal with has been on a truck at one point in time. There is such a shortage of truck drivers now, just as Mr. Kralkamp said, that you could triple the services you provide for truck driving, and we'd still be short. So I fully support you doing this, and I thank you for the presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Jasky. Any other comments?
Good evening. My name is Rick Smith. I'm general manager over at JX Peterbilt here, locally owned company. We have about 900 employees in 4 states, but we're based right here in Waukesha, and that's where we started our business. I've been involved in trucking transportation for about 44 years. And I want to go back just a few years ago. I was in my office late one night, and a fellow walked in my office and said he was waiting for the grants to come through to WCTC on the truck driving program, and he was going to be one of the instructors. And he wanted to stay in touch with the industry, so he was asking if he could get a part-time job with us driving shuttle trucks. And I think Jeff is still with the program right now, but I was really happy to hear that. You had John Kralkamp up here on the screen. John is an iconic person in our industry, 4th generation, wonderful company based out of Allenton. Pauline, also very iconic in our industry, 2 of our stronger voices. Pauline and I also serve on the Wisconsin Motor Carriers Association. We have 40 people on our board, and they are all excited about this program. It needs to be expanded. Trucking is different today than it was years ago. These trucks, the specifications that are involved in them, it's just not like driving in the past. It's very technical. These trucks are very powerful. The weights are going up. The lengths are getting lengthened. And we all know about accidents that happen. I think it was mentioned about cars zipping in front of trucks. If you've ever been in a truck, it's crazy the way cars treat truck drivers. And these guys are professionals, ladies and men. They know what they're doing. So I applaud it. Our company also enjoys a relationship with WCTC in a couple of different things. We help maintain some of their equipment from time to time. Nothing but professional excellence here at this campus. I'm very proud, and our community should be proud that it's in our backyard. So on behalf of the Motor Carriers Association, our company, myself personally, we strongly support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Hi, I'm Dave Linsmeyer. I live at N27 W26033 Steeplechase Drive. I am your neighbor. I live behind the fire station. I'm on the lower end of the hill that is adjacent to your back fence. I have some questions and I'd like to get some information if I could. Right now, I do hear the emergency vehicles back there. I think I hear motorcycles also. I hear squealing tires and I hear sirens. They haven't been something that has disturbed me too much at this point. My biggest concern is noise. What are your current hours of operation for your classes right now? How early are they? What days of the week? How late are they?
Sure. Our current operation of our courses, our scheduled times are 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And the instructors are out setting up on the course before 7 a.m. to get the course ready for the students. At 10 a.m. when the students, or at 10 p.m. when the students leave, they're shutting the course down, taking it down, removing vehicles for training that would go on there the next day. But our operation hours are 7 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Is that Monday through Friday? Or is that Monday through Saturday?
Yeah, no, it's Monday through Friday. Saturdays and Sundays, our hours are 7:30 until 5:30. Man, okay, yep, thanks. And there may be times when they're out there beforehand setting up and out there after taking down when the class is completed.
Okay.
And
Go ahead.
if I may, training for emergency vehicles is not as expansive. Brian, you want to?
Usually 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. And the motorcycles are out there until 9 p.m., Monday through Friday, sometimes on the weekends. And then on the fire.
Sure. So quite a few of our departments in Waukesha County are volunteers. And so when they need to train, a lot of times it is on weekends. So it could be Saturdays and Sundays, but they're usually looking for like an 8 to noon workshop. So.
Right. That's when I think I've heard them on Saturday mornings. Now, right now, you can't do motorcycle training and emergency vehicle training at the same time, or truck driver training. With the new expansion, you'll be able to do probably all of those at the same time. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. So we'll have a lot more activity during those times. So there's a potential for an increase in the sound for that time. I hear occasionally sirens, and you said that there is low wattage sirens that are being used. But that's not always, that's vehicles that WCTC owns?
That is correct.
Okay, but they're also, other departments bring their own vehicles, do they not?
Not in law enforcement.
Oh, okay, they don't.
No,
They're driving there then in those vehicles. I see them on the road.
Yeah, we do a
But
lot
they're
of-
not on the course?
Right, we do a lot of training. So all the vehicle operation training we do for law enforcement, we use our own fleet of vehicles.
Okay.
We have approximately 22 of those vehicles.
All right, very good.
The fire engines, fire trucks, and ambulances, the community departments will bring their own.
Right. Now, I don't hear squealing tires from the fire equipment and that kind of stuff. You talked about the village ordinance for sound. What is the ordinance?
I'll read it to you.
The ordinance reads that it's section 54-103. It's loud and unnecessary noise prohibited. It says, "No person shall make or cause to be made any loud, disturbing, or unnecessary sounds or noises, such as those that may tend to annoy or disturb another in or about any public street, alley, or park or private residence. And there's a second under accelerating vehicles. It says, no driver or motor vehicle shall cause by excessive and unnecessary acceleration the tires of such vehicle to spin and emit loud noises and throw stones and gravel, or shall such driver cause or be made excessive and unnecessary accelerating any loud noise such as would disturb the public peace. Those
Okay.
are the ordinances.
All right, so they don't talk about decibels.
Pardon me?
They don't talk about a certain
They
decibel
don't,
level.
no.
I didn't think so. I know the city does not have that. Now, you said that moving it closer to our houses, we're going to be closer to where you took your first readings.
The 630-foot distance, you mean?
No, the 100 feet distance so we're going to be closer to that distance. And you're saying 84% of the time you were 50 decibels or less.
That's correct.
Okay, so we can assume we're going to have something like that. Maybe we're going to be a little bit farther probably than 100 feet, and there's going to be a berm somewhat, but there's going to be more activity in that area. So there's a potential that we're going to experience 84% of the time. So there could be 16% of the time that it may exceed the 50 decibels. I'm just speculating on this.
It's possible, yes.
Right. What was the highest decibel reading that you were getting?
The highest we had was a decibel reading of 82.4, which is consistent with a garbage disposal. And that was at 630 feet, the one that was closer to the fire station.
Okay. All right. So that was at 630 feet. You got a reading of that?
Yes, from the
So
track.
if you were 100 feet away, it would have been higher than the 84 decibels?
No, at 100 feet, our highest reading we had was 71.7 decibels. That's consistent with a vacuum cleaner.
Okay. All right. All right. Again, my biggest concern is the noise. I don't think the aesthetics for me is going to be a problem at all. I've got the big red roof looking at in my backyard from the fire station, and that aesthetically is what it is. But I'm afraid that that berm may help me because I'm low, and that berm will probably exceed the height. But I have neighbors that are up on the hill. That berm isn't going to really affect them because they're going to be way higher than that berm. Have you thought about putting a berm up there along the fence line and putting in, instead of the deciduous trees, or I should say the buckthorn that's along that fence, put a berm up along the fence with white pines to really help some of those neighbors who that berm isn't going to probably serve? I'd like you to consider it at least.
Also, if I could add something just briefly to that,
Mhm.
you're making some very valid points. Sound travels, in waveform, and most of the waves that are coming from the EVOC vehicles are going to be at a ground level, and the berm is going to capture a very large majority of those ground level noises. Now, there may be some sounds that will get up over that berm, but that berm is going to have a very good effect on deadening sound at its current projected height.
Okay. You have some buildings that are going in there. I assume the two that are going in when you're putting in the stuff for the trucks are things that are docks that the trucks will back up to or something? Or what were those two buildings going to be for? You had four buildings, I think, in there. One you said it may be classroom. I'm assuming the quality of that building is it going to be the same quality as the buildings that are on the campus already with the same materials looking? Or are we going to look at and see something that looks more like a pole barn?
Three of those buildings are planned to be storage buildings.
Okay.
One of them will store the motorcycles that will be used on the motorcycle track. That one is planned to be built in phase one. The other two are storage barns that we currently have down located near the T building, and they are pole buildings that are down there that we would relocate out there, which will at some future date allow us to expand parking on this end of campus because we are limited on what we can do with parking. And then the fourth one would be a brick building to match our existing buildings, which is closest to the neighbors. So once that third phase is done, you should see that building, which is the brick building, which should be similar to what you see on this campus.
Okay, very good.
And all of those three buildings, the first two of those buildings, the motorcycle and one of the storage buildings, will have loading dock resembling areas on them for the trucks to practice backing up into loading dock areas, which is one of the things we cannot really provide to the students in any kind of a good fashion right now. So that would be planned on both of those buildings facing that new CDL track.
Okay. I appreciate the information, and I hope and that you will really respect the noise of this and see whatever you can do to make it so that we're not hearing more than what we're hearing now, which I don't think is to me has not been awful. And if we could keep it to that level, I have no problem with this, but I'm very, very concerned with bringing this closer, that we are, and the more activity, that we're going to have some real noise issues that we're facing. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Linsmeyer.
My name is Sue Kieber. I'm also a resident of Steeplechase. Unlike Dave, I'm up the hill, so I kind of would echo some of the same concerns that Dave has. Yes, the sound does travel up. My biggest question is, you have given information about sound levels that were determined in December of whatever year it was. How would you compare that to the increase? Is it going to be a threefold increase, a fourfold increase? You know, I guess the sound levels that you determined at this point would seem to be somewhat irrelevant compared to what the sound levels are going to be in the future. Can you respond to that as far as how much more based on the scope of what you're planning?
That's a good question, and I don't have an answer for you on that.
Mm-hmm. So that would be my concern. You know, as I said, it really does no good to look at the current sound levels, because that's completely irrelevant to what may be coming. So that would be my concern as a homeowner. The other thing that I question is EVOC is Emergency Vehicle Operations Course, correct? So how can you divide, you know, when I look at the truck driver training, and I certainly, you know, I want to have truck drivers be safe on the road, because of course I'm driving along with them. I guess when I heard about EVOC, I thought of police cars, ambulances, fire vehicles. I did not really think about trucks being emergency vehicles per se, nor do I think of defensive driving classes for, you know, cars, teenagers in cars. I also don't think of emergency vehicles as being motorcycle training. So for recreational use with motorcycles. So was there any thought put into the possibility that you could possibly separate? I'm sure from a feasibility standpoint, that wouldn't be an easy thing to do, but did you look at any other parts of the campus that might have been a possible location for this, other than an area of the campus that backed up to a residential area? Really the remaining part of your campus, parking lots, none of those areas are abutting a residential area besides this, you know, emergency vehicle area. So I guess that's my question. You know, I have an easier time understanding that I want the police and the fire and the ambulances to have safe places to practice, but I have a little harder time thinking about, you know, Mr. Harley learning how to ride his motorcycle, or, you know, the teenage driver who you can't take the cell phone out of their hand doing defensive driving courses and creating, you know, that kind of noise. So did you think about separating and having it on any parts of your campus? So for instance, keeping the motorcycle drivers you know, where you currently do it, which I think is adjacent to Grandview, or not Grandview, Highway T, so that you wouldn't have that abutting a residential area. Was there any thought given to that possibility?
Do you want to bring up that original map that you had from all of WCTC? If Mike expands that out a little bit, you'll see that we really don't have any space large enough to put in these facilities. Where this property on the far right of this screen right here is our property line. We go right to this line right here, then we go up through this right here, and we wrap right here. So this area right here is really the only large green space that we have left. So we've talked about how much space and the village has ordinances on how much green space you have to maintain. We do fall under that with this new plan. We've already had calculations done by Mark and his crew on that to make sure we're okay with that. But with that, we tried to make these spaces up here as multifunctional as possible so that they could serve all of the functions that we're trying to do, which helps reduce the cost to the taxpayers so that we're not building two separate entities that cost twice as much, basically.
Sure. So in other words, you're relocating parking lots, you know, swapping out, making that area parking lot versus bringing it closer to Grandview. There's no room there was no possibility that was even available.
Our parking lots were created at a time when we didn't have to have the large stormwater retention basins. If we were going to create something new, which we have to create for this new training area, we have to create that water retention system. We don't have that on our current parking lots. We would have to create that. So that takes up a lot of acreage to create that much space for water retention systems. So.
Okay. Well, I would echo what Dave said in regard to the berms. I might disagree with the berm on the lower level. I agree that with Dave that the sound does travel up. I think I'd have other neighbors that would agree with me on that as well. I'm a nearly 40-year resident of Village of Pewaukee and now City of Pewaukee, so I hope that there was a lot of thought put into this, which I'm sure there was. I'm glad to have WCTC as part of the community, and but just hope that you are taking private, residences into consideration as well. So.
Sure, and just to be clear with what I said, Sue, is that the ground level, the berm is going to stop a lot of the ground level sound waves. I did not say that it will stop all sound waves from getting up over the berm. There's
right.
potential for that.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Andrew Barth. Since you're a resident of Steeplechase subdivision, since you're still here proposing this, I'm back to express my deep opposition to this expansion project, as well as the current way in which your track is used. Let me state again, I'm not opposed to the emergency services training that goes on. I simply don't believe the use of this track for truck driver training conforms to the area where this activity occurs. I think it is somewhat disingenuous for CTC to disguise this plan as a way to improve emergency services training when it is almost exclusively for the expansion of your truck driver training. The use of this track as well as an expanded facility would be considered an industrial activity. Look around. This is not an industrial area. If you had to seek zoning approval for a 17-hour-a-day trucking service, you would never get a conditional use permit being next to a residential community. It's that simple. WCTC needs to consider an alternative site for your trucking business right now. Going back a year ago, I complained to the president of WCTC that the noise and hours of operation had become unacceptable. The answer I received back was essentially the middle finger. I was told the hours would be 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day of the week, take it or leave it. And if those hours weren't inappropriate enough, it turned out I was lied to, as the actual hours are anywhere between 6 a.m. in the morning and 11 p.m. at night. I have all kinds of evidence to indicate that as well. A few weeks ago, before the first informational meeting, a WCTC representative came to my house to discuss the proposed expansion. He stated the expansion would be located to the east of the existing track between the track and the baseball diamond. This couldn't have been any further from the truth. I even challenged that statement at the time because honestly it didn't make sense, but he was emphatic. That was the location of the new expanded track. I was lied to again. And yes, I was quite surprised by your plans at the last meeting. I was really caught off guard because of the way this official misrepresented it. In regards to the noise analysis WCTC and your engineering firm conducted, how can anything be gleaned from it? It does not take into account any of the following, be it weather conditions, wind speed, direction, the type of noise being generated, direction of where the noise was generated, and time of day, which is a critical component to noise travel. Any competent sound analysis would also take into account the fact that sound travels much farther at night than during the day. It is safe to say that diesel truck noise travels much further at night when we are all home trying to enjoy our evenings. This study, paid for by WCTC, tries to imply that the noise generated by the trucks isn't really audible or beyond a suburban setting and that all noise is the same. Let me ask you, do you hear trucks where you live 17 hours a day? The 2 dosimeters on either side of my head hear it differently, and it's unacceptable. Currently, the test track is approximately 750 feet from my house. After expansion, the track will be within about 250 feet. Does anyone here think noise won't be a major issue at that distance? Anyone? Thank you. The addition of that insignificant berm will do nothing to abate the noise, and I'm fairly confident most of you can't argue that point. Regarding distances, does anyone know the closest residential community to the training track at MATC's Oak Creek campus? I guess you don't. It's 2,500 feet, nearly half a mile, and those closest homes are on College Avenue, a main city thoroughfare. And you want to put this within 250 feet of our homes? MATC's track is in the heart of an industrial complex. In conclusion, I think I've demonstrated just how poor a plan this is for our community. This will affect the property values of the homes in Steeplechase subdivision, not to mention our quality of life. It already affects our quality of life, and that is unacceptable. For what we pay in property taxes, the last thing any of us want or will tolerate is a 17-hour-a-day trucking business on top of our properties. Understand, I will do everything within my ability to see this proposal never gets off the ground. In addition, I'm putting WCTC on notice that as the fall semester begins, I would strongly encourage you to seek alternative sites for your truck training sessions, because as soon as the dosimeters on my head are triggered by your trucks, I will be filing complaints with the Village of Pewaukee, the City of Pewaukee, Waukesha County, and anyone else who's willing to listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barth, for your comments. And I would like to once again address the hours of the 7 to 10 training session that we have and the letter that you received from our president. Certainly in no way was meant to be a middle finger to our neighbors. We're holding all of these events because we want to be good neighbors. We want to hear the comments and input that you have for us as we move forward and plan this much needed training for all of the different areas that we have that we've listed. The 7 to 10 hours, again, as any training facility, there's time before 7 a.m. that needs to be, things need to be set up. Time after class, things need to be taken down. And I can assure you,
At 11 at night, when trucks are still running back and forth, don't tell me they're just taking things down. The training activity goes on well past the hour stated, all right?
Okay, and
I'm out there. I see it, you don't. So please don't try and challenge that.
well, and I can assure you that we are looking at our scheduling for fall, and your input and comments are being very seriously taken to heart here, as I think we really want to demonstrate that WCTC does want to be a good neighbor and that we do respect our neighbors and the houses that you live in. And again, we appreciate your input and comments, and we will take all these into consideration as we continue to move forward with our planning of this project. Are there any other questions or comments?
30 years ago, and what we're dealing with right now is not sufficient, and it's not going to meet the regulations and requirements. So I totally agree with it. My father's a retired truck driver, so I'm not going to put an opinion on this about truck drivers in any way, but I can see that need as well. And one of the most dangerous things that's out there right now is truck drivers that don't know what they're doing, and it's very scary. I can see the need for that too, and I want to make sure that whatever happens on this, that the neighbors over here in Steeplechase, we have to think about that. We have to make sure that whatever we're doing, we're going to take extra care to make sure that noise is not going to affect them. And there is going to be more noise. We know that. It's just going to happen. So if we can look into that additional berm, making sure we're putting in trees or doing whatever we need to do for the sound barrier, it's going to be a critical part of what you guys do. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jim Adursky. I live on Steeplechase Drive. I guess I just had a question about the noise and the decision to do the noise study where you did. To me, it would make more sense to do a baseline at an area where it impacts Steeplechase subdivision. So almost do a before and after to have some sort of level of what that impact would be. So I'm curious why you chose the area you did as opposed to maybe closer to the fence line or even in the Steeplechase subdivision.
Sure. Could we go back to the slide? What we were most interested in
was we wanted to get as close a proximity as we could to the track. Most of the operations occur right around this area. That's where we found that there was the greatest amount of acceleration and deceleration in the trucks. The most of the noise is generated from this ground level right here. That was the purpose for this one. Then what we wanted to do was establish what we felt was representative of the terrain away from the track over distance. So we were trying to figure out what is most representative of this area. And as far as overall terrain, this location that we selected here probably best matched the overall terrain of the area. So we looked at the grade changes, we looked at the amount of trees, the amount of grass, swales, everything else that was there. And we felt that this distance here probably best represented what errant noise is going to come from this track based off of what is the average of all of this of all of these locations in here.
Yeah, but you're building a berm to prevent noise. So I would think that you would want to understand the impact on the other side of that. So almost a before and after kind of study.
before and after.
Well, what's the baseline today of the noise level in the Steeplechase subdivision, and what would be the noise level after construction to compare that, yes, we've addressed the issue, or no, there is an impact?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and you know, I don't know whether or not there will be an intent or a follow-up study to do a noise demonstration after the berm is constructed. That's what you're saying, right? How are you going to do it before and after to prove that things did not get worse?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be my question would be, you know, can we get a better representation of what this impact would be on our subdivision with a more appropriate sound level measure, maybe a different location where we'll see a more
like a post-construction?
Yeah, well, a post-construction, yes.
Yeah. You know, I don't know, that would be WCTC's.
And then I guess the other thing I would just say is, you know, with the increased activity, you know, I guess the big thing is the hours of operation, you know, for me is, you know, what happens during the day. I mean, I'm not there, so I don't really care, but maybe some other people would. But, you know, 10 o'clock at night, if you're hearing noise, it is going to be a little annoying. So is there a way to, you know, develop a different hour of operation that maybe has less impact at the later hours of the night?
We are definitely looking at all of that. We are hearing your voices and your concern. We are definitely looking at all that. We will be looking at what we can be doing to especially be shutting down at 10 p.m. and be done on those nights that we're offering training. I think one of the unique aspects of the type of training that we deliver, it's intensive. There are a lot of hours involved in it, and it's what we would consider short-term training. And many of the people that take that type of training are working during the day, and the evening is, unfortunately for the neighbors, that is the best time for the students to be taking that course. And so those are some of the things we're looking at. We're looking at how we can pull off some of the training that occurs at the end of it, pull it off the track, take it off the track, shut it down, take it to a parking lot, and practice some of the inspections that they do that would be part of the air braking that you're hearing at the beginning or ending of training. But the lights would be out and the training would be finished by 10 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Hi. My name is Jeff Keel. I'm actually one of the truck driving instructors here at Waukesha County Technical College. And I just have one thing to say. From the time I started here, almost 5 years ago, about 4.5 years ago now, it has been stressed to me by everybody within our program and within our college to be a good steward of our neighbors. And as far as sound goes, we have always tried to stress to our students and fellow instructors that when we're out there, to do everything you can to keep that noise to an absolute minimum. And that's something that we've tried to do from day one. So that's just one point I wanted to make. The other point I wanted to make is, as far as the truck driving program and why here, to me, it was a no-brainer. Because Waukesha County Technical College, to me, is one of the most high-quality schools there is in the country, much less the state. So to me, I would want a school that strives to have the highest quality instruction, teaching how to drive one of the heaviest, most dangerous vehicles on the road. And I'm proud to be a part of that, so thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Brad Bowen, Chief of the Dousman Fire District. Actually work with Oconomowoc Fire Department as well. I actually was a past instructor here at WCTC and want to echo what the truck instructor said about being a good steward of neighbors. That was something that was ingrained in all of us. And that's something that I have as a fire chief as well. We rely on this course. Actually, I'm not able to send students here as often as I want to because the course isn't available. That means I'm getting a hit on my insurance rates. I've got 150 employees that I'm worried about. They're driving emergency vehicles. I've got employees ranging from 18 years of age all the way up into their 60s, and we're driving some big, dangerous trucks. The other component I look at, and I believe, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, the rates that we're charged as public safety entities are less than what you're charging for like the motorcycle rates or the private citizens. So by making a multi-purpose course, you're helping keep taxes down for your municipal government, and you're making it multidisciplinary. So that's huge for us. Our budgets are low. We're not getting any extra revenues. So anything that we can do to be a good neighbor still to the citizens, but help keep those costs down for us, I think is huge. Also, I want to see motorcyclists that are trained, private citizens, kids, truck drivers. I see every year 18-year-old kids killed on motorcycles in car accidents because they were not given that opportunity to learn how to drive. So if we can help keep the community safe, keep the roads open. When a semi-truck gets in an accident on the interstate, the road's closed for hours because there's an inspection that has to be done. So if we can keep people trained, keep people efficient, both new students but also ongoing training, which is something that I'm looking for, is the ongoing training for all of our staff. I guess I look at that. We've actually had people quit our services. I'm sure law enforcement has people quit because of the graphic nature that we see. So all of this goes into the big picture of helping keep this a high quality of life community and all of us moving forward and keep this community safe. So I support the project. I think it's a great layout. I've worked in a couple other counties and seen other tech colleges do this. And unfortunately, when we can't get the training locally, we have to go an hour away to get the same training. And that's just not feasible when I've got a staff of 150, 200 volunteers that we have to get remedial training every couple of years. So thank you guys for doing this. I support it and look forward to seeing this move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to add just a couple real quick things. What this gentleman just stated, in addition to something that was stated earlier, WCTC should be embarrassed that our local emergency services don't have the facility to use that they need. They've been displaced by the truck driving training program. That's an embarrassing situation. The second thing is, every college, CTC included, MATC, you have campuses all over. Why can't you find a place for this truck driving training in an area that's acceptable for that type of practice? There's any number of industrial areas that you should be looking at as opposed to putting this within, less than a football field of residential properties. There's other sites.
Thank you again, Mr. Barth. I would first of all like to reiterate again our president's commitment and comments regarding the 7 to 10 operating hours. We are committed to only operating during that time, and those are our operational hours. Those will be our operational hours. And just in terms of addressing, I think, something that you had mentioned, and another person mentioned about looking at other sites. And WCTC has looked at other sites to do this. We heavily weighed that consideration before we brought this proposal forward. There's a couple of reasons why we didn't select other sites, and we looked very closely at other industrial sites in the area. We looked at sites that had nothing on it. And one of the things that I will say about WCTC in terms of being a good neighbor is we also do that with respect to the tax base. And we are committed to not going to the community for referendums. And when we looked at the cost of moving our truck driver training to another site and the duplication of services that would be needed in order for us to duplicate what we're currently offering on this site to another site would not be a fiscally responsible use of taxpayer dollars. And so that was very heavily weighed. We looked at several different sites to run this program. And one of the other aspects of any time we take anything off-site, WCTC has one primary campus and another one in downtown Waukesha. All of our resources in terms of student support are on those two campuses. The truck driving students that come to WCTC, as well as all of our program areas, need the same support services that our students get that come here for our other programs. And so I think when we look at how operation is weighed for truck driving, fire, police, all of those decisions are made in the best interest of the college and in the best interest of taxpayers. And so we really try to weigh those decisions mainly from a fiscal perspective on how we can deliver the services in the most cost-effective manner to the taxpayers.
As you can hear, we're mostly concerned with the truck noise. You are going to redo this area. You've thought long and hard about how it's laid out. It appears that emergency vehicles are not in the evenings. They're coming during work hours typically, or Saturday mornings. So they're the ones that are going to be least obnoxious to us. I would encourage you to look very seriously. Can you redesign this so that you have the emergency vehicles closest to us and have the trucks on the farthest area, and redesign this so that we don't have the trucks close to us? And the other thing is I really would encourage you to seriously look at additional berming along that fence and additional trees up there, because I'm on the City of Pewaukee Plan Commission, and I hear neighbors coming all the time and complaining about developments. Nobody wants development in their backyard. They want it exactly the way it is. Well, we all know that there's land that's useful land that WCTC, if this wouldn't go in, something eventually would go in, and you'd have probably us coming and going, well, we don't like this or that. But I think that if you really look at this, you can make this work much better as a neighbor. There may be additional costs like berming and trees and that kind of stuff, but I really think the quality of WCTC is outstanding, and the quality should be as a neighbor also. You know, you have a lot of these communities that take advantage of it. They appreciate your high quality, and we would ask the same thing as neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions?
Something that might be for that high decibel noise, and an example for everybody. You mentioned that sometimes there was a high decibel noise that exceeded the garbage disposal. I can tell you our 3 stations have what's called an exhaust system in them. So when the fire trucks start up and leave, they suck the exhaust out of the fire station to help eliminate cancer. And when that goes on, I've actually had residents in our communities say they know we're getting a fire call, because that does resonate through the community, and that might be something to look at and see when that high pitch peaked, was there a fire call at that fire station? So I do know that we cause that in our community, and that's to help eliminate cancer within the fire stations. So if you didn't see it all the time or hear it all the time, I just thought I'd pass that on for everybody as something that might not be related to this, but something related to the fire service. So just a piece of information.
Any other further questions or comments? We sincerely appreciate all the input that you have given tonight. Please be assured that people are taking copious notes. If you haven't noticed, this is also being videotaped, so we'll be able to play back to dive into if we have any questions about the comments that we're making. We do want to be good neighbors, and we are going to be taking all of your input into very serious consideration as we continue to plan this project. So thank you all very much. I'd again like to invite you to the open tour of the EVOC Saturday morning from 8 until noon. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to contact me. I'm going to get to the last slide here. We've been jumping around a little bit. Apologize for this. Please feel free to contact either me or Shelley Kuhn, our Public Relations Director, with any further questions. And if Saturday morning doesn't work for you, if you're planning to be out of town and you would like a tour, please call either one of us and we'll arrange a tour outside of that time for you to see the area. Thank you all very much, and enjoy the rest of your evening.